gon' make some moves tonight. Yeah, stand up, got something to prove tonight. So stand up, we ain't gonna plan tonight. We gonna take action on our dreams and fight, alright. We ain't gonna stall, never stop. We gon' make it all till it's out. We ain't gonna plan tonight. We gonna take action on our dreams and fight, alright.
Good evening. It is 9 p.m. on Sunday night, fresh off NYCFC's 3-point win against FC Cincinnati. Hope you guys are doing awesome out there. My name is Scott Churchson, alongside Mr. Haylon and Scott from Five Borough Footy.
What's up?
The caption I have under my name probably should also apply to him too, but it's what I decided to do in the last minute anyway. We're going to break this match down tonight. Got some videos to play for you guys. I'll talk about the Fernandez goal, the Alonso miss, the response to the Alonso miss. I also have the clip at the end of the first half, which had the fans chanting MVP, by the way. So I'm going to throw that one in there. Oh, yeah, I didn't tell you that one. I forgot to tell you that. So I got a whole bunch of clips we're going to do today. I got a little bit of Pascal's press conference. Also, we have something unique in this case called Today in MLS History. We'll do that at the end of it.
Nice. Talking
about something that unique happened today way back in the 1990s, which probably half the people watching this were not even alive during that time. But in the meantime, sir, how the heck are you?
I'm good, man. It was a great game today. A little under the weather, but we'll power through. There's a lot to unpack, so I'm really excited to get into it.
Yeah, let's roll. Right off the bat, I'll say this honestly. I did not expect a win out of this game today. I figured this was going to be a match where they were going to probably end up losing it. Cincinnati was a team that had won 5 straight. NYCFC honestly had kind of an embarrassing loss and not even a great win against Toronto previously. But you know what? 19 shots on goal, which is second highest of the season. I'm sorry, 19 shots overall, which is second highest of the season. 5 shots on net, which ties for third best in the season. And another clean sheet for Matt Freese.
Yeah, Matt Freese, who I've said it before, and I'll sing his praises all the time in this regard. He's just one of those talismanic players who, even when things aren't going to plan for the team, he still looks like himself. He still does what you expect him to do. Frizan Al-Gaid.
Actually, you know what? I might as well I want to throw that clip up there right out of the gate in this case. Why not?
Okay.
This was something. Let's see. Yeah, this is the clip right out of the shoot that had the fans actually chanting MVP. It is at the end of the first half. Yep. The corner, and you watch basically Matt Freese's action in here. He charges forward, tips the ball a little volleyball style, got lucky with the shot off
the bar.
And then that one random scramble grab, where he has him flailing.
Right.
Yeah, see that one right there, bangs it off the crossbar. Banging it off the side of the goal was basically a big part of today in a lot of different ways. But right here, that panic thing where you see, you just throw every part of your body at him in any way you can. But this came right at the end of the first half when I think a lot of people, even myself included, expected that FC Cincinnati was probably going to maybe, score at this point. And the game was actually going to go into halftime 1-1, honestly. So,
yeah.
So,
Frizan Al-Gaid!
So, yeah. And that's the other side of it. We've talked about that before. Could you imagine basically if they chose not to trade him? Barraza might be your starting goaltender.
Legit. And it kind of it proves that business model that we keep talking about, which is look around the league for distressed assets, bring them to your club, and maybe within your system or with your coaching or whatever, the change of circumstances, it changes them into a much better version of themselves, and that's what we see with Matty.
100%. And it's funny because David Lee gets a lot of gripe about the fact that he doesn't make moves, but sometimes when he makes moves, you got something like this. For the most part, Alonso Martinez, you see these kind of plays that really draw attention, but you sort of forget amongst the, will they get this guy? Will they not get this guy? De Bruyne, is it going to happen? No, it's not going to happen. Evander.
Right.
I don't remember. I think it was you today or was it Trey? I forget who was, talking about, NYCFC never even made a call about Evander,
Yeah.
And as a result, the fans are kind of like, what the hell's going on? But on the other hand, he did bring you Matt Freese. He brought Freese up the turnpike.
He did. But broken clock. I feel like, you know.
Yeah,
But that's just me. I'm not. I don't want to. I don't want to be negative or hating on the guy. It was his idea. So
I mean, who knows how much longer Matt Freese is going to be here at this point. Alex Rando is, I'm guessing, or maybe Romero is probably going to be the heir apparent to that job.
I think it's.
Hmm?
I think it's Romero.
You think so? Yeah. In
Yeah.
this case here, being the fact that he is in fact only 26 years old, is such a key factor because he's just really coming to his prime. And
I'll be right back.
that's good.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
No, dude, do what you got to do. And with Matt Freese being somebody right now who, is coming to his own, and typically, as a general rule, goalkeepers have a little bit of a longer career because there's a little less strain on the body. Look at Brad Guzan, for example, in Atlanta. I mean, he's literally in his 40s at this point, but he's still rolling strong. Alonso, we're going to talk about that. I got that video. I'm not hating on Alonso for that one. He should have had it, but I'm going to talk about that from a different perspective. And but still, at the end of the day, yes, that is correct. It is a big win.
The shelf life, the average shelf life for keepers, luckily is pretty high. It's pretty, it's a long shelf life. So, man, God knows what he's going to look like when he's 35, 36, 37,
Well, we asked about that ourselves when we turned that age too, but yeah, I mean, it's interesting because his work ethic is there, his mindset is there, his leadership abilities is very zen. We've said
and
previously that a quiet confidence. He's a bit of a rally.
Very quiet.
There was a difference between his style and say Barraza's style back there.
Yeah,
Barraza.
He leads through example. Matty, like that's what I was saying earlier. Is that like through his performance, being consistent, you kind of can pull from that as a player if you feel like things are a bit shaky. He didn't really have a lot to deal with outside of what you just showed and a couple other shots. But the few times that he was called upon, he answered very resoundingly.
Yeah.
So,
but little by little, I mean, this is he's getting clean sheets after at this point, he's making stuff happen. This is clean sheet number 4 on the season, by the way, for him.
Yeah.
So which is funny because they didn't have a single one, until previous July, and now at this point in the last month and a half, they've had 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They had four in 7 games. So that's a big deal right there. And it gives a lot of hope, especially with this May schedule going into what it's going to be, as crazy crowded as it's going to be. 8 games at a minimum right now. 3 games in like a 7-day stretch, and it's just not going to end. Fortunately, we'll talk about this coming up, but they have a match against CF Montreal, who is a team that is brutal. Was the first team in the league to actually axe their head coach this year, 3 points, and B, a team that NYCFC historically has done very, very well against. And in between those, a trip to Pittsburgh.
yeah. But we can sit here and sing match praises for the next 3 hours. Yeah. You mentioned they also have Pittsburgh in the midweek. As far as the first team playing the Open Cup or the twos, I was speaking with Trey about that. It might be a mix. It feels like maybe Nico will be at the left back. I could see Tavon. It might not be Thiago, right?
I think Bakar gets more time.
Yeah, I think Bakar might get a look. I think Alonso rests. I think Ojeda starts. It's going to be a very heavily rotated team. Yeah, I agree. Very heavily rotated.
I think here's the thing: the Pittsburgh Riverhounds are a team that has struggled. They lost their first home game of the year last night, so they're also a team that's kind of playing on short rest themselves. Granted, at home, but they're on their own short rests. Yeah. So that's going to be something where I think a B side NYCFC should be able to handle the A side Riverhound squad.
Yeah, for sure. I love that comment from Gio. We want Max Murray. I'm a huge Max Murray fan. So hopefully he does get a proper look. Yeah.
I mean, The team actually, we had a different setup today because normally after matches are over, we usually get some time right outside the press conference room at Citi Field, and we just chill out with the players. They come down the line, you grab someone, you kibitz for a little bit, ask questions. We didn't have that today because they were getting those, whether it's whether you like it or not, they had these guys pretty much on the road immediately to the point that our pregame press conference on Tuesday will be with the team already over in Pittsburgh. So they are wasting no time on this turnaround.
Yeah.
But Highmark Stadium's a nice stadium. So.
Yeah.
Highmark Stadium is a really nice stadium.
Is it?
It is. It's an underappreciated USL stadium. They get decent numbers over there, but NYCFC should, handle that squad pretty fairly. Again, it's weird. We on this side, on the soccer side, we actually cover the Riverhounds. So I've got guys covering the NYCFC game, but from the Riverhound side of it. It's a 4,000 or 5,000 person stadium because it's USL. I think right now the most popular USL team is in Oakland. The Roots are pulling 12,000 people a game right now for USL because Oakland keeps getting screwed on their fan base keeps getting screwed. You lost the Raiders, you lost the A's. They got to go somewhere.
Yeah.
I think following the USL team is a giant FU to the ownership of the A's there. But let's take a quick look. See, I want to basically point out the Fernandez goal. I like the way that this was kind of handled. There we go. So when you see in this case here, it came off an unexpected rebound, but it was quick thinking and a quick response by Fernandez to see the opportunity off that one right there, and then just pounce in and go. And I really liked how quick he was in the response there.
Yeah. So here's the thing about why that played out as well as it did for him, right? Right. It comes off that deflected touch from the defender, right?
One more time.
But look at where he's. Go back to the touch from the defender.
Yeah, I tried to. I screwed that up. There we go. So
it's okay.
Right
so
there.
The touch right there. That space right there is where you. That's not a space you expect your winger to occupy. That's a space you expect your cam typically to occupy, right? And these are the types of goals that come from that type of positioning, in my opinion. And for him to be there, yes, it came off of an unexpected touch, but positioning that way behind the play, it's accounting for these unexpected moments, right? And it's your reaction and how quickly you are to get to the moment that matters in that moment. So, the ball comes to him and he's already poised. He's got his eyes on it. He's squared to the goal. Phoenix Rising. Go ahead and run the play.
We're talking about the USL side of things, but sorry. Yeah, the comments right now about Louisville City and Phoenix and all this kind of stuff. But anyway, yeah, you're talking about the clip. So yeah,
just go ahead and run the play.
So, but yeah, the way he was and the fact that the awareness, because you can see right here, Fernandez is watching, and then at this point right here, he immediately sees where it's going, and he doesn't think pass. He thinks, I have a shot, despite the fact that there's a player in front of me and three Cincinnati players there. He still sees the window. He still sees the opportunity. And nobody, you see the reaction a split second before. So let's back this up.
Look, by the way, look right there. Look at what the defenders are doing already.
I'm trying to find that, because in this case here, they were not prepared for that.
Right here.
Yep, they were not prepared in that case.
They're low. Their eyes are on the ball. They're not seeing Julian at all. If anything, they're watching Alonso in that moment, thinking he's about to make something of that ball, and that's what allows Juli to kind of sneak in there and get a good shot on it.
Yeah, and being out of alignment, it was a panic moment there. And in this case, they were so out of line because you can see the space between the defenders.
Right.
So, and even though the gap was closing, if you see right here. There we go. So there's still that open space there. He has no space to the right, but there's nobody on that side anyway. So what's the point?
Right.
But he has ample space, probably about 3 feet to take that opportunity. It's not a lot of space to work with, but it was enough to get it by.
And from the edge of the box to to get such clean contact with it, to
Hmm.
place it so well, one touch is so class. It's
Hmm.
so class. It's and frankly, I was pointing this out to John Bainey when he scored the goal. Those two goals that he scored last year. Do you remember those like 90th minute game winners?
I remember the one.
There were two. It was in
Mm-hmm.
back to back games.
Hmm.
Both of them came from very similar areas.
Hmm.
Very similar areas. Right at the top of the box in that semicircle, off of just a nice ripped, well placed shot. He just loves that area. He loves to score from that area.
And Julian Fernandez is what? He's at 21, right?
20,
Yeah,
maybe 20, yeah.
he's almost 21 and a half.
Okay.
Yeah. So
And
that's honestly. What's that?
I said outside of that goal, even if he doesn't score that goal, Julian looked like a man possessed today. And I
Well,
saw a tweet from some guys uh, kind of criticizing Julian on one particular play. And it felt a little unfair because Julian was very decisive today on and off the ball. Even Coach Pascal said it today in the press conference when I asked him about it. He said his decision making was very good on and off the ball. He created problems consistently, even if a lot of people think the only way to measure success is through goals and assists. Success, the game is a lot deeper than that. Like creating that type of danger that he created is the success. That's what you want from your winger. You want your winger to consistently beat their guy down the line, to get the ball into the box, even if it's something that they end up cleaning up. You want that as a threat, as a viable threat, and he was a viable threat, and that's a first from him, honestly.
yeah.
Yeah, it's the best performance of the season.
Now, in this particular case, I've got that one as well.
Yeah,
that's a tough blow to take. And then I'm always curious how these guys get into the building the next training. And
if you want to run it back a little bit further,
and
maybe
work even harder than he did before. They need to have this good feel. Is a guy who had to
his decision making on and off the
There
ball.
we go. I think that's better.
good.
Yeah.
Could you talk a little bit about that? What he's been doing in training, or just how he's been developing in that?
Interesting. Juli is a guy who had to deal with several situations since I've been here. He had a very good preseason, a good start at the season of the MLS, but he's only 21. So it will go like this and that. So we're trying to get more consistency in the whole team, including Juli. But as always with creative attacking players, they need to have this good feel. Today was that moment. He showed his quality on and off the ball. Decisions were good. I just saw the goal again. It's high quality, very high quality. Spins it off the goalkeeper, like he's been training as a maniac every day. You guys remember when I took him off before halftime? That's a tough blow to take. And then I'm always curious how these guys get into the building the next training. And he just went at it again.
So
what I love about that answer, that last bit, but he said, I'm always curious as to see how these guys get into the building. I remember I mentioned this to you in a previous show of ours, that he remembered you when you asked him a question. He remembered you attending a Wednesday press conference.
yes,
right?
Yeah, which is weird in this case, because yeah.
Oh, say again.
I was going to say, and I'll throw Blue City Radio's comment up, by the way. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. I want to talk about that comment, by the way. But what that said to me was that Pascal he cares, right?
Mhm.
As in, he meets people and he commits them to memory, even if it's just a face or a moment, or he commits them to memory. So I can only imagine how he treats his team and his boys, right? And a lot of coaches don't think that deeply when it comes to subs and how it impacts the player that way. But for him to say that he subbed him off, it must have been a blow.
Mhm.
And then for him to say that he was paying attention to how they come into the facility the next time, that says a lot to me, because he's willing to challenge you. He's willing to say, hey, there are consequences for you falling below a standard I know you're capable of. And I don't know. I really appreciate that. I appreciate a coach who's willing to hold guys accountable and to observe them. He, he doesn't just put them on the back burner and wait for them to come back to the fore. He observes them from afar and commits it to memory and remembers each guy's growth and performance and all their journey. And yeah, just to see that it's no surprise to me that finally Julian is blossoming under a coach like this, because it's a coach that actually cares.
Sometimes, and a lot of times you just need a different voice. It's like a lot of things in family, even too. Someone can say the exact same thing 112 times, but it never resonates. Someone else says the exact same thing, the exact same way, and suddenly it's like, oh my God, it makes complete sense. So in this case, sometimes the different voice is what matters. Now, one thing I'll mention, and you talk a little bit about this, Pascal Janssen is not afraid to disagree with you. In press conferences, he's like, I don't think you're right. He's not afraid to throw it back at us. And it's funny because on our side, it's got this weird almost grading system where sometimes he's like, this is an interesting question. That's not a great question. Or, sometimes, when he says that's a great question, suddenly you feel like really validated in your own head.
Absolutely. Like, I love it when he says, oh, that's an interesting question. That's a good question. It's like, he means that. Because if it wasn't a good observation, he would tell you.
Isn't that kind of a Dutch thing where they're just like real? They're so
very, very blunt. They're very blunt.
So, I think in this case, that's pretty much the Dutch side of him in this regard. But I think that transparency is good for the fan base. We've discussed previously that Nick Cushing I talked to a staffer today who also agreed with the sentiment that maybe he's more better geared towards the female soccer base players than maybe like the men's soccer side. But in Nick Cushing's case, he was always the consummate cheerleader. You had a bad game, you missed 3 shots on net that you should have had. It's okay. Work on it. We'll get better for next time. Janssen will be like, well, I'm pulling your ass off till you fix this thing because the team is more important than you are.
Nick just wanted to be a weekend dad. Right?
Oh.
He wants the Six Flags trips. I know it's your boy, but
no. But you're not wrong. But I never thought of it that way.
He never wanted to be the bad guy, right? The weekend dad only wants to be the fun parent, the parent that takes you to the theme park, to the water park, to get candy and eat what you want. And you stay up as late as you want. That's what he wanted. And the fact is that when you're in that role, especially, and it feels like, for me at least, I was saying this to a friend of mine earlier, that Nick, I don't know if he expected even to be put to that level of responsibility as soon as he was, right? I don't think we expected Ronnie to leave as abruptly as he did, right? And I think the team was in a scramble, and
they lost hope at the same time.
It was help us Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're help us Nick Cushing Obi.
Like I said, in this case, they also lost Tati right at the same time, which affected the scoring side of it, affected Tyler Magno's approach. They had the system pretty much in place, and then Ronnie's like, I'm peace out. I'm seeing my family. Nick Cushing, okay, you're taking over. You got this. I'll see you on the way.
Let's talk about that Blue City comment.
Oh yeah, I'll pull that back up.
Julian, I think that's Julian's one of his glaring flaws. He's not the most defensively minded, as in, like, not only is he struggles with anticipation, but his I wouldn't say he's lazy, but he just lacks the athleticism that it requires to be a good recovery artist. Whereas, like, what Wolf lacks in the grace that Julian has. Like, Julian has a grace on the ball. He looks like a Jack Sparrow, Captain Jack Sparrow, sitting on the edge of a ship when he's got the ball and he's attacking players. He looks light, fleet-footed, whereas Hannes is kind of clumsy, right? But what Hannes lacks in that grace, he makes up for in an incredible work rate and a lot of athleticism. So he's really good when you ask him to press. He's really good when you ask him to track back and do those types of jobs. And Julian, I think, lacks in that department. what you lack in physicality, you can make up for in a mental, acuity, and awareness, and ability to react and anticipate and be there before you even have to rely on your athleticism. And I think he's not there yet. He's still young. He's 20. But once he adds that to his game, he will be a true two-way player. But right now, it's all right. He's,
Mhm.
a young guy.
But
You know?
what was interesting about this match also is I believe, inside that first 9 minutes, they already had 3 shots on goal. Now, granted, they only
Huh.
had 5 for the entire match, which is another conversation. But they came out of the gate and really, really pressed immediately. Some of the shots were mid, but it was impressive to me that they were trying to get forward with it. And I think being able to put Cincy on their heels a little bit, take them off their game. Because again, in this case, and I've harped on this ad nauseum, the upfront tandem. I mean, Evander and Denke, they had 5 goals in the last 2 matches. Denke had
Okay,
3, and Evander had 2. So to stop those two, especially when you've been struggling offensively, and again, you had a rough game against the New England Revolution last week, that was a big deal. And I think that was part of the game plan. So I was very, very impressed with that. And also, when I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit, their ability to adapt to the Alonso miss.
It depends. And
What do you mean?
a bunch of the penalty and a bunch of other misses in the run of play as well. Unfortunately, I
Yeah.
do want to talk about Alonso's.
Yeah.
It seems to be a trend a little bit now, and I'm getting worried because I'm the president of the Alonso Martinez fan club. I have been ever since the draw versus Miami last year, where he scored the the game tying goal. Um, but the development that I've been hoping that we would see from him this year, it's not happening as quickly as it needs to, or as I was hoping to. 2 things that he needed to develop was Alonso needed to be a little bit more better of a presser. He needed to kind of be like Munsef in that regard. Munsef is an amazing presser of the ball. He's a very front foot type of attacker. Alonso, I don't know if it's a laziness or if he just kind of switches off when we don't have the ball, but he's just not the best at pressing. And if you pay attention, a lot of the games up until this game, he was better this game in pressing. But a lot of the games up until now, you'll notice Maxi having to tell him and direct him, "Hey, you need to be there. You need to have already been there pressing this guy." And it's a thing that Maxi's been trying to get him to do a little bit better. And this game, to your point, he was a little bit more alert to anticipating where the press needs to go a little bit better. But there's still been a little bit of a dip in form, and it's a little concerning.
Yeah,
The penalty.
I was actually trying to find the clip. I had to go back and find it again. But in this case, we'll see it from a few different angles. But he had the entire right side. He had it pegged. He knew exactly where a goalkeeper was going to go, and just dunked it off the right side there. So right there. I mean, he had pretty much more than half the net at this point, and just rang it too far to the right.
Yeah.
But again, what mattered to me and what impressed me immensely about this is the team didn't let it knock them down.
Yeah.
Other times that would have caused the team to collapse, and they did bend. I mean, we showed the video earlier of Matt Freese at the end of the first half, but they were able to recover mentally from it. Or maybe in the last few months, even the last couple of years, maybe they weren't able to. They would look at it and be like, "Oh God, we're stuck. We only have by 1." And then you start playing with that not to lose mentality, not to playing to win mentality. And there's a massive difference between the two.
Absolutely, it is. I was speaking with John Bainey he asked, "Is it time to take Alonso off penalties?" And for me,
Not yet.
I understand why exactly. I understand why the question's being asked, but for me, it's not yet. It's not that it's never. It's just a not yet thing. And the only reason why I say that is that he's still the most goal dangerous player on the team, right? And then secondly, the nature of the misses, they've not been, terribly taken shots that are easily saved by the keeper, or he's sending it into orbit. You know what I mean? It's not that. It's he's pinging it off the bar. like straight up walloping that ball, and if but for a couple inches, you get what I'm saying?
Yes.
So it's not that it's not a I don't think it's a real concern just yet. Now, could he be doing better? Absolutely. Should he be stepping up and holding down those moments? For sure, right? Uh, but I think keep giving him the chances, and I actually believe showing him that faith, allowing him to continue taking the pens. Once he finds that form from the spot, I think he becomes a killer in front of goal. I genuinely believe that.
I just looked it up. He's 2 for 4 on the season, including today.
He's 2 for 4.
2 for 4. So
That's not bad. It's not
not,
horrible.
not great, but not bad. But not enough to pull him on that at this point either.
Yeah,
Now, knowing Pascal Janssen, I wouldn't put it past him. I mean, does it go back to Maxi? Does it go to somebody else? There's a lot of options. Did Fernandez possibly get it? Who knows? But
Yeah.
But I think in this case,
if I was to replace him, it would be Fernandez.
yeah, I think for
Absolutely.
right now it's still his job. Now, if he misses another one, he goes 2 for 5. Now that's a different conversation because now you're under 500.
And it opens up the conversation a little bit more. But what kind of cements it for me is if he misses and then Julian continues this upward trend of performances.
Yes.
If that happens, then it's Julian.
Yes,
Give Julian a crack,
agreed.
But as of right now, it's for me, it's Alonso because he's our most goal dangerous guy.
And I think in this case, I think it's just getting in his head a little bit.
It's
easy to do so, and I'm almost going to say in some way the Chuck Knobloch yips, where you have too much time on your hands and you start thinking too much. When you react in the moment.
You even saw Maxi holding the ball, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's trying to protect him. It seems like when that happens, when we've seen that happen in the game, it's the leader of the team trying to protect the guy taking the pen from any psychological pressure.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. That's the other side of it too. I mean, you don't really have a lot of options here.
That's 100% true, Davi. If there, I don't give Santi a lot of credit, but one thing I'll tell you is that he has like goldfish memory when it comes to failure. Like he'll mess up.
Okay. Can I ask a really stupid question here?
Go.
Okay, the goldfish mentality.
Yeah.
You obviously referenced it right here, and I'm going off track, but you got to bear with me for a second.
No, go.
I asked Micha Ilinic about having a goldfish mentality, but in reverse, because he had that one, he had the one setup for Alonso a couple weeks back, and it was a great setup. You remember there was the long pass, and I asked about having the goldfish mentality when you have something successful, so you don't ride on it, and he didn't, ride the memory too long and get sidetracked. He didn't understand what I meant. And it's funny because I got a couple Snickers from like Mohammed and like Roberto Abramowitz behind me in that press conference because they were like, he doesn't know what a goldfish is or the goldfish reference.
Yeah. It's a language barrier thing. It's a language barrier thing.
Yeah, and then when you mentioned it, I'm like, did he? Was I wrong? Is he wrong? There's nobody wrong.
He's also a young cat. So but. To that point about the goldfish memory, like Santi was a killer in that regard. He never let failures weigh him down. He just he had zero conscience. Nothing bothered him. Who do we have next? Well, what do we have next?
As far as videos, I believe I pretty much got all the video content that I've got at this point.
Do you want to talk about each of the players? Because I feel like there's some that deserve their flowers.
We could. Again, like I said, for me personally, the biggest part of this is the fact that the team did recover well.
Yeah.
After that, because again, the team in previous times would have played with the, we're only up by 1, and then you start making, panicking a little bit and making mistakes. This team kept its guard up, and it did what it needed to against, like I said, an offensive powerhouse. But yeah, if you want to go into the individual players, in this case, it's 1,000% fine.
Davi's comment about Hannes Wolf.
Oh yeah, give me a sec. Phoenix Rising. Oh yeah, Louisville City. Got to mention that one too. USL's got a lot of potential. I really think there's a lot to it right now because there's a USL team in everybody's backyard. But anyway,
So what I wanted to say about Hannes is we were all speculating like crazy. We were like, "Oh no, Kevin, he doesn't trust
Mhm.
Nico. Hannes is going to play like a true left wing back," and there were all these, you know, speculative guesses that people were making about how he was going to be used.
Mhm.
And what one of our colleagues asked Pascal about that, basically asking like, you know, is it like how are you, what is it that you trust him defensively or whatever the case may be? And Pascal flat out to your point, he disagreed with him. He
Mhm.
said, "I actually disagree. Like I don't think," he said. I'm paraphrasing here. He didn't feel as if Hannes did anything differently than what we have always seen him
Mhm.
do up till this point on the left wing, which is create trouble, create overloads, stay high, and he wanted him to do that on from an overlapping perspective because it engages their opposition fullback a
Mhm.
lot more directly when it's that way versus when it's the winger. You know what I mean? Um, so, and then you have Perea kind of checking in and covering in those spaces for him, which essentially was what they did versus the Red Bulls last
Mhm.
year, right? Um, but I really enjoyed that he was willing to just a lot of guys, a lot of coaches in this moment, you don't have your starting left back. Some guys either take that gamble and you play the kid, you play the Nico Cavallo in that moment, which I've said it a million
Mhm.
times. I'm a huge fan of Nico Cavallo. I think he's a sturdy guy. But I understand why, the risk is there. But other guys, they will repurpose someone and make them try to play exactly as a left back, but out of position.
Mhm.
And that was what it was. The person made the assertion that Hannes was playing out of position, and Pascal felt like he wasn't out of position. If anything, he was being asked to do the same thing, except from a left back position. That's
Mhm.
what it was. Um, and yeah, I just appreciate that he's willing to take tactical risks like that, man. Yeah, Trey mentioned to me a concern of his. He feels like he's worried that there's no default setting or default configuration for the team.
Mhm.
Um, And I understand that concern, but I love that because
Mhm.
coming off of Nick, who he was so rigid and rarely ever made changes tactically or personnel
Mhm.
wise, right? He rarely ever
Much
made
the
changes.
fans were always on about that one.
Yeah, and even in the game, he rarely ever made substitutions. Whereas we look at Pascal, who's willing to substitute a guy at the 40th minute. He's willing to play a guy who
Mhm.
largely plays as a winger slash cam as a left back and do that stuff from the left back position and play three at the back, right? So I enjoy that he's willing to tactically adapt to whoever and whatever's in front of him. You know?
Mhm.
Hold on, let me get my.
So, but yeah, we'll do the breakdown of the players on this side. The work that was done. Again, absolute stellar job on the defensive front. You know. Dobby telling us how he feels about Nick Cushing right about here. Here's part one and part two. uh, actually, yeah. But I think in this case, that it was a good win overall. I think it's a lot to be excited about for the squad. Um, we'll talk a little bit about. I'm going to throw this up just for funsies. The grade score for a lot of the players on both sides of the fence. This came through, by the way, WhoScored.com. Julian Fernandez gets a solid 8.5. That kind of makes a lot of sense there. No surprise. Um, Keaton Parks gets a 6.5 rating, but he wasn't on long enough to really get much of a rating anyway. We got to find out what happened there, too, by the way. Can you read that all right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
See. This is essentially what it was. Oh, okay. I wanted to talk about Justin and Johnny.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of guys. Look at that 7.5 from Johnny.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's the second highest rating. A lot of people
Yeah.
don't notice the types of things that players like them do to help the team. But man, is it important?
Yeah. Nico gets a 6.6
Man, is it
too, which is
important?
bad. You know. And
Nico with his
Bakar,
6'6".
I almost feel like Bakar should get an incomplete because he was only on for a couple of minutes. But what
Yeah.
really, like I said, what really is big here is Denke gets a 6-0 and Evander gets a 5-9. They did what they had to do.
Yeah.
And
And,
that's
and,
a
and
huge one.
frankly, we need to talk about Burke. We need to talk about Burke.
Yeah, he came on
because
struggling that first half.
it feels like it felt like up until this point that Justin has been the preferred choice on the back line, right? Now, some guys assert that it's because Johnny has kind of emerged as a better option in the midfield, so it's kind of forced Pascal to put Justin back. I think that has something to do with it, but I don't think that Johnny playing well necessarily, um, or rather necessitates Justin being picked over Burke, right? I think for whatever reason, I can't wrap my mind around it, but Justin is just kind of more of what Pascal wants out of a center back. I think it's his physicality. I think it's his calm under pressure and his decision making in general. I think it is better than Burke's. Um, and Burke came in, and I think Burke has a little bit of a chip on his shoulder because he's thinking, I'm a left-footed center back. Pascal has openly said that his ideal setup for his back line is a left-footed guy on the left and a right-footed guy on the right. Why am I not being picked over Justin, who was an academy player? I am an I can see him having all of these thoughts and having that chip on his shoulder. But like I said, Burke might not match the type of profile that Pascal wants out of his center backs. And today, I could tell he stepped it up. He was very good in emergency defense. He had a couple bad giveaways for sure still, but he, for the most part, was kind of careful. And he, having Justin in front of them, Justin, who quietly had such a good game in that midfield, just being a good stopper. Like Justin is he's a great James Sands regen. He's exactly that. But
by the way, we got to ask a question on that one too.
Say again?
We got to ask a question on that. Is Sands coming back now?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, but
I think Burke made a great case. No worries. Burke made a great case. Burke made a great case today. Perea. Say again?
Yeah, I was going to say no. It's otherwise the numbers I think are pretty close to what we're looking at. Parks didn't get a lot of time in this case. He was pulled 40 minutes in.
Right. Oh, Tavon. I also wanted to give him flowers. Solid defensively, and does exactly what I said he was very good at. Coming in at the tail end of last season and coming into this season, he pushes up into that half space like he's a false back, and he consistently whips those balls in at the far post through the air on the ground. He's just very, very, very dangerous when it comes to those, and I really enjoy seeing that and seeing him add that to his bag. There were a couple. This game truly could have been 3-0. There were a lot of times it could have gone up, and if but for Alonso's efficiency in front of goal. Perea, I have a huge concern with Perea. Even with how he's being profiled, because Pascal, whose judgment I obviously, he's my favorite coach in world football right now, actually. He called Perea what he said, an offensive-minded or an offensive midfielder. Is that what he said?
Something like that, yeah.
Something like that. And that stunned me because that's just not. I don't see that. I don't see the proof of that in how Perea plays. I see him get forward a lot, sure, but he doesn't produce chances or convert chances, right, at a high enough clip for me to say that he is a threat in the attacking third like that. I think he's actually better used in deeper spaces, more in a truly box-to-box role, being on the ball more in those deeper spaces. But in advanced attacking spaces, even as a box crashing number 8, I don't know if that's really his bag. But obviously Pascal is Pascal. He's a professional So he knows what he's talking about, and maybe we'll see him unlock that in Perea. You
Hmm.
know, uh, who else?
Matt Freese is Matt Freese. I mean, like I said, the biggest thing here is you stopped a strong offense. You clean sheeted them in the process. You got 3 points, which again, I went into this. Matt Mangum asked me outright. He's like, "What's your prediction?" I said Cincinnati's going to win 3-1. And I might get some hate on that one, and that's okay. Take it.
No,
That was
you were. That's a. I think anyone with a sane mind would have guessed that too. They were in great form coming into this, but I think a lot of people really underestimate. I think even we underestimate just how good this team is playing at home. Yes, we've had
Mhm.
some disappointing moments at home, but this team is especially good at home, and I feel like the data would back that up.
And
Yeah,
also, like I said, worth mentioning the fact that you have a very beatable CF Montreal team in a week. Forget for a sec, the Riverhounds and all that. RBNY, different ball game. Who knows what's going to happen there? But next week is a winnable game by a
yeah,
lot of fronts. As long as they take it with the proper mentality that you don't go into it automatically thinking win. You got to do the job. You got to do the work.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I mean, their record historically against CF Montreal has been incredible, and right now this season has been a terrible one for Montreal. Like I said, they're at 3 points on the season.
Yeah.
So you know,
Uh, who else? Johnny. I mean, I spoke about John.
mhm,
Johnny's just man. And for me, he's written in pen on that
sure,
starting 11.
sure,
He's just that good, and he was just so calm, composed on the ball. We couldn't ask for more from the kid.
yeah.
Um,
We'll see him again probably on Wednesday too. I'd imagine.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I could see that. Um, it's nice to know that there's an abundance of options uh, at the fullback spot between Micha and Tavon. I think Tavon playing well does not negate Micha's,
Mhm.
what Micha can offer. So it's nice to know that we're deep there. Um, but yeah, for the only thing coming out of this match, if I had to pinpoint one negative, it is concerning that Alonso seems to be kind of. There's a little bit of sputter. There's
Mhm.
a little bit of a sputter. It's been the last like maybe 3 games or so, maybe more, and it's been a little bit of a sputter.
I think the expectation has been raised. Last year was that sweet freshman Cinderella story. Oh wow, this is amazing. Now it goes from sweet, Cinderella story to expectation, and he's
You
done
said
very
this.
well so far.
You said this. You said this at the top of the season that you feel like it's going to be a sophomore slump. Do you remember saying
I
this?
do. I predicted 13
No.
goals,
Yeah.
13 or
So
14.
you felt like it was going to be a sophomore slump, and I called you crazy, especially because he started, you
Mhm.
know,
And I call myself
scoring
crazy.
so well. But it's starting to kind of show
Mhm.
a little bit. And yeah, I just hope he finds his feet again. And I hope, and I think that keeping him on pens and getting him going from there
Mhm.
is really the way through, honestly.
He.
Because
Oh, go
without
ahead.
him, yeah,
A team like I said, Montreal, a team like the Riverhounds again too. I think you go into that match expecting to probably pull in 3-4 goals.
yeah,
I mean, again, we
yeah,
cover the Riverhounds. I know pretty well what that team's up to right now. So
yeah,
there's an expectation that you should be able to get 3 wins in a 7-day period here, and that
yeah,
does a lot to change the mentality, take the pressure off. I
yeah,
think for Alonso, he's still a kid. And
yeah,
having basically knowing that it doesn't have to be him. It's been built up to be him, and knowing
yeah,
that Fernandez is on his way up, Hannes Wolf has almost matched his goals, his season or season high goals in a career or his career. I think
okay,
get probably take some pressure off a little bit, but
yeah,
he's now the sophomore 9, not the freshman Cinderella 9.
yeah, yeah.
You know,
It's concerning because he's got to be our guy. We rely on him a little bit too heavily for him to, you know, not be figuring it out
Mhm.
right now. And it's nice to see Julian turn into this, decisive, game-changing winger, a
Mhm.
la, GP. He felt very GP today.
Mhm.
Um, I think, unlike GP, Julian actually has some really good vision. He helps create a lot of chances for others. But he's also still very goal dangerous, as evidenced by today. So I hope I hope it's not one of those, because we've seen Julian do this, right? Like last year, he scored those two back-to-back, those game winners in back-to-back games,
Mhm.
and then slumped. And then this season starts off the season really well, and then slumped again, right? And then now he's kind of back up. And Pascal actually said that he's gonna go like this for a bit, but I just
Mhm.
I want him to find a cruising altitude,
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
he's just, we know what we're gonna get from him, even on bad days.
hmm
You know, I want him to get to that Matty Freeze level. Like we know what we're gonna get from Matty even on bad days.
hmm
As for Ojeda, Trey sort of disagrees with this. I feel like we're seeing glimpses of it right now. The same way how there was a point in time where we genuinely didn't know uh, who it should be between Matty and Barraza.
hmm
It was 50-50. I think it's kind of the same thing for Augustine and Julian. Now, granted, they play on opposite wings.
hmm
Actually, I think Ojeda can play on both wings. I've seen him do it. He played on the right wing multiple times for the twos. Um, but yeah, they're not necessarily competing directly, but in a way they are.
hmm
Because we see typically when one starts, the other sits. Rarely do they get started
Mhm.
together, right? So, and if one is left off, right? Like we saw Ojeda, he got into a disciplinary situation,
Mhm.
and that gave Julian the opportunity to come
Yeah.
on, right? And if not for that, who knows if Julian is finding this form right now.
hmm
So yeah, like I said, I think Julian is finally kind of finding his momentum a little bit sooner than Ojeda is. I would love to see Ojeda realize that he's the fastest human
hmm
in the Eastern Hemisphere, in the Western Hemisphere. Um, it just kind of just be goal dangerous,
hmm
wing dangerous, and just be that guy. But yeah, that's yet to be seen. But like I said, it's Pascal. A lot of guys are developing, and yeah,
Yeah. Again, it's a marathon, not a sprint. You've heard all this before, but the team should be able to, like I said, I think the Riverhounds, I just ran it. They're 2-1-4 right now. So they're 7 points in 7 games.
the
They, they,
Riverhounds are the Riverhounds, man.
yeah, they're well, yeah, but they've lost 3 straight too. So, so I
Yeah,
could see a lot of the guys like Bakrar, Rando, Johnny, Nico. These guys, I think, are probably going to get a lot more minutes on a match like this to rest the other guys to play for the weekend.
I would love to see.
Aiden O'Neill too, I think,
Uh,
to get some time this week.
yeah,
Or
I hope
Wednesday.
so, man. I hope so.
It's a perfect time. I mean, listen,
Yeah,
use today to watch your new team, get adjusted, get acclimated, and then you throw him in against a USL team and get him some minutes and just ease him into the responsibilities. I think this was perfect for him. I really think
yeah,
so.
yeah. Uh, I would love to see a two-striker attempt.
Mhm. He doesn't have his visa yet. Okay, they're still working on the visa issue. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. It's tough.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of pretty much how I felt about today. Yeah,
Yeah. Like I said, I think it was a decent match overall, better than I expected it was going to be.
absolutely.
So credit there. So, all right. Care to wrap this up with something different? And now for something completely different.
Let's go.
So, we are going to set the
Today in
Wayback.
MLS history.
Yes, we are setting the Wayback Machine all the way back to 1996. Before they had something called Star Wars Day or anything of that sort. Back in the era when basically we didn't even have the prequel trilogy, we had Eric Wynalda scoring the first ever goal in Major League Soccer history for the San
No
Jose
way.
Clash. Yep, against the New England Revolution. And the Revolution had been around that long, 29 years for that. But yes, the first ever goal in Major League Soccer history happened today, back in 1996. Winalda had a decent overall career, a bit of a journeyman in this case. So
Oh,
he's more known for like this goal particularly. Coaching, he's a coach for a while too. He's solid, but the shot there just kind of a little bit just tipped off, the goalkeeper and in.
wow. What a moment.
Yeah. So the first, there it is.
What a moment.
Yeah. So
That's cool. Very cool.
Which, by the way, also kind of dates us a little bit too, because that was 29 years ago today.
29 years ago.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
30th. This is the 30th season for NYCFC, or for MLS, and yeah. So may the fourth has other value for MLS, not just for soccer as well. So actually,
May the 4th.
can I actually? This is the only way I'm going to be able to do this.
What?
I got a picture today. I'm not sure if you saw it.
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna probably have to do it this way. There's no other way. Joe Tollison. Joe Tollison basically in the Star Wars robes here. I had to grab a picture with him. It was just he was dressed for the for the role in this case here for Star Wars Day. And you know what? I got to give him credit. I think it was pretty cool.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah.
Oh man. I wish I had some props for a costume. I would have worn it today.
Yeah, like I said, I go back and forth on the whole
Joe, on the way in, I came in with Joe and we're going and we're going to the metal detector and he goes to the security guard. He goes, "Hey, so I have a lightsaber in there." He said it as if he had a loaded gun. I was like,
Well, you
like-
don't really
like-
know how it's going to go when it goes. When you have to go through those metal detectors. Usually, it's pretty straightforward. It's nothing bad there. So.
But what, you think the TSA person's gonna pull it out and be like, "We got a lightsaber"? No.
Oh, and by the way, that match actually was in New England. But I just checked it. It was a road game for the Clash.
Oh wow.
So yeah.
All right.
So yeah. Yes, and by the way, there were they had friendlies in this case, but the first regulation goal in the history of MLS happened tonight. So yay for that. But all right, anything else, sir?
That's it, sir.
All right, so we'll wrap this up. I'll see what happens as far as basically Wednesday night goes and whatnot. If we do something, we don't do something. I'll figure that out. I got to check my own schedule. But
Okay.
Sunday night, sure. We'll do the recap after the Montreal game, I'm sure, in this case here, because we'll have a lot to go into. But otherwise, yeah, I think we're good, man. Thank you for the time.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
So, and all you guys, appreciate you guys. Comments.
Thank
good,
you,
bad, and
guys.
ugly. Yep. Take care. Stay awesome. And yeah, cheers. I think we easily beat. Well, you know what? Again, if you think you easily beat, you got to be careful. But yes, I think you got your best shot. Okay, that's the last comment. Later.